Hello everyone, Mike Steinbach here with part number 8 of taken from my book, Why Do You Love Me? And part number 8 is a story that defies odds. The name of the story is What Are the Odds? And this is a family that's more focused on family. We all have families and stories about things that happen, with us during the course of our life, and the interesting factors that family add to our life and the challenges that they add to us. And sometimes in the midst of that, we're looking for a little bit of help. We ask the Lord for help, and He sticks with us again in the long term. To bring about a story that unfolds over time, to bring about change, prosperity, self-development, because it's so hard for us to change, as a person. And we have to give that to other people too, called family. We have to give them room and time to change, to mature, to get a sense of how to change direction can take a lifetime. Some people never learn, and others will jump into change with reckless abandon. And we wait for those moments. We wait for those times to happen. And when we're waiting on God to do something with family. And we have to be patient. It's a real testament of patience in us when we're waiting for God to do something and allowing Him to be faithful with how He goes about doing it in others. So this story, What Are the Odds?, is based on my son-in-law, who had from the time that he was a young man, while he was still in school, talked to me about the idea of becoming a federal agent. And he wanted to emulate his Uncle Mike. And when he graduated from school, he tried to do other things, business work, and he had a business degree, so he was trying to test himself in life to find out where he belonged. But the whole time it was apparent that he was federal agent material. He's an A-type personality. He's very dedicated, very strenuous in his attack on anything, very independent, and very capable. He'll study a problem and be relentless at everything that he does. The question is, just like a loaded gun, what direction do you point someone to effectively use the discharge of that power? And he was searching to solve this in his own life. And he decided at some point that he was going to apply for the FBI, and the word came back that he was rejected. Now, he had his bachelor's degree in business, and he realized that that was not a perfectly suited match for the FBI. So, I guess he kind of thought about this and kind of gave up on the idea at the time of becoming a federal agent. But it was during this time that I felt kind of helpless about, well, what can I do about this? And of course now, as a Christian, there's always the alternative of prayer. So my son and I were headed down the shore, and I said a little prayer on the way down the shore, thinking, that as we all do, we say a little prayer and this and that, and we hope God does something, right? But this time it was different. The Holy Spirit comes in and answers my prayer right away. And I'm saying, well, what can I do to help Doug is my prayer. And the Lord is showing me, He said, get down the shore, you're going to go to the beach, and when you do, you're going to meet a federal agent down there, and you're going to ask him for his help. And I thought to myself, whoa, wait a minute. I'm going to go down the shore. I'm going to go down to a beach full of, on a beautiful day, in the summer, full of thousands of people. The beaches are packed. And I'm going to go down there and find a federal agent? So, well, that is hardly likely. Of course, now you have a prayer, God answers the prayer, and here comes doubt, right? Here comes doubt right away. And I go, but the bigger issue is if I do find this guy and I come up and go, hi, are you a federal agent? What's he going to think as a federal agent of somebody who's identified him as one without knowing him? So it was a conundrum, but I didn't get any answer to that part of the prayer. Faith is as faith requires. And when the Lord is showing you something, you have to move in that direction. Well, I kind of dismissed this out of the back of my mind, but again, by faith, it's kind of being held in the foreground of it. And we get down there, and I found a great parking spot, which determined where we were going to park to get our stuff, our fishing equipment, metal detecting equipment. We went down there loaded, beverages for, I'm taking my son down for Father's Sunday at the beach, right? And, we get down there, and lo and behold, we find a spot on the beach that has a jetty. And nobody can swim around jetties, so you can fish there even though the beaches were very crowded. And I'm walking up toward the jetty, and playing along the edge of the water is a man with his dog. And the Lord speaks to me again. And he said, that's the federal agent, go up and talk with him. And I'm standing there, can't believe that this is reoccurring, that this is reawakening, like boom, there it is. I happened to pick the right place to come up and meet this federal agent. But this time, there was no doubt. This time, faith was set in motion. And I was looking at this man, and in my heart, I knew he was a federal agent. So I walked up to the man, and I said to him, excuse me, are you a federal agent? Federal agent? And he turns around and he looks at me and he said, yes, I am. How did you know that? So I looked at this and I realized that the only thing I had was my story, okay, to explain this. So I told him, I said, look, I've got a son-in-law who should be a federal agent. He wants to become one. He was rejected from the FBI scenario taking place, and I wanted to see if I could do something to help him. And I asked the Lord to help me, and he said that he would identify a federal agent, and it turns out to be you. And he said, but how did you know when you got down to the beach that I was the man? And I said, because the Lord spoke to me again and said, this is the man right here with his dog. And I said, now, turns out you're a federal agent, right? He goes, yes. He says, I'm with the Treasury Department. I'm a federal agent. He didn't know really what more to say. He said, how can I help you? And I said, is there anything you can do to help Doug in his pursuit of becoming a federal agent? And he said, I'll give you my card to give to him, have him contact me, and I'll do everything I can to see to it that he becomes a federal agent, which absolutely floored me. I was so excited. He gave me his gold embossed card that said Treasury agent, special agent. And so I took this and I was very excited. I gave it to Doug in the hope that his interest in this pursuit would be renewed. And as it turns out, Doug began to apply himself in a different direction entirely, and he wound up working he came back to me and he said, would you pray for me? He said, I'm out there trying to find another job that suits me, and I'm coming up empty. And he said, I always believed that America was a land of the American dream. And he said, I believe that. He said, but I'm really having difficulty experiencing it. And I said, well, I'll pray for you. So I prayed for him, and he wound up getting a great interview with a job named Sovereign. And they only take Ivy League candidates, but they made an exception for him. And it turned out to be that Doug applied himself wholeheartedly in his endeavors in working for this company that hired him, because he was a misfit, but he was great at forcing that square peg in a round hole. It's the only way I can tell you. That he fulfilled the solution to problems for them that other people that worked there who were academically qualified could not compete with him. And he did it by act of will, sheer will, and the force of his convictions. And this went on for quite some time. And along about 2008, the company that he was working for did real estate purchases, acquisitions of business dealings. And then they would take those businesses, do whatever they needed to market them and flip them for a profit, and they were doing extremely well. But in 2008, the bottom dropped out of that market. Sovereign wound up in deep financial trouble, and they turned around one day and said, Doug, we love you, buddy, but we got to let you go. And this was kind of heartbreaking to him. It was very crushing to him. But you know what? He got a sample of what it was like to be appreciated and successful at something he devoted himself to. So he decided to devote himself to himself and reapply himself in the direction of becoming a special agent. Over the course of many years from the time now that I was down the shore and the Lord directed me to understanding that Doug's application of becoming a special agent was in his destiny. It was something predetermined, preordained of God to do this for Doug. But the thing that the person that God was working on the whole time was myself. To be patient, to be trusting, to support Doug in the time that he went through to work himself into the place where he could pursue this and do it with confidence. And so Doug sold his house. He got himself eye surgery. He went out running in the middle of the winter months, running to shed pounds and develop himself physically. Also, to take note that the federal government changed its policy of hiring people from 32 years of age, and they raised the limit to 34, and this allowed him to become eligible. So rules within the federal government changed to allow him to become fully qualified. He also took time to go back to school and complete a master's degree, which he did in an expeditious way. I mean, he did it as quickly and as efficiently as he could. He had no job. His wife was working. He sold his house. He sold all of his possessions and moved his family into my house. And I want to tell you something, okay? And that is that when these transitions were happening, these were perfectly measurably normal to me because I knew that God was doing something in his life. I accepted this wholeheartedly, and I gave it my best to care for his wife and the children, and whatever business of his we could help with while he endeavored to become a federal agent. He actually even interviewed for the Secret Service in our house, and I can remember Susan and I had left the house, and when Secret Service interviews you, they interview both the husband and wife so that the spouse knows the sacrifice that she's making as a part of what he's becoming. And sure enough, Doug was such a perfect fit for the Secret Service that they thought he was too good. They could not believe that he never had a drink or ever did drugs of any kind. Never had a drink of any alcohol. They looked at this and said, this is very unusual. This guy is a very straight arrow, the kind of person we're looking for, but is it believable? And they told him that this was, the only problem with him was the fact that he was too good of a fit. And was he lying? Which the Secret Service frowns on having liars around. But you know what? They had no reason not to believe it. Doug lived this kind of life, and he lived it in front of people that knew him. And so when they really investigated him very hard, they found that this was just true, that he was the perfect special agent material for Secret Service. And of course they hired him. And this took a period of 10 years of my life witnessing from the time that he was 21 years old to approximately 31 years of age. 10, 11 years or so of time went by and transitioned as he worked his way through the difficulties of all these decisions. Now, when he started school, his family continued to live with us so that he could go into training, which lasts for about a year. And after that, our daughter and I, we would travel up to the northern part of the state looking for a house for them, because his first duty station was going to be kind of centered up in the northern Jersey, New York City area. So you wanted to get, housing arrangement that kind of satisfied any requirements for duty that you had. And that was the point that for me, all of these things came to an end. But it was not painful. It was completely painless to me because of the preparation that God made in my heart from the very beginning of this, to stand with Doug and see it through, to help, with his family, and to see the amazing things that people will go through to fulfill the destiny that God has for them in their life. And I would point out to you that he is still a federal agent. He's transitioned from Secret Service into another branch of the federal government, and he does a very stand-up, disciplined job in the execution of his job. So as a taxpayer now, I'm sitting back going, man, I really hope all the guys that are doing this job and getting paid a good living to do it are worth it as much as Doug. He's worth every penny of it. And again, I have nothing but a good report, to share in this regard. Okay, well, that is the story of What Are the Odds? And the thing I want to point out to you here is it's called What Are the Odds because when I was standing on that beach overlooking the thousands of people that packed that beach on that beautiful day, what were the odds that I would talk with one person and have him be the federal agent who would understand me and actually volunteer to help me? Doug never used, as far as I know, he never used that card to contact that federal agent in his quest for the different things that he did at the time. It didn't make a difference to Doug in what he did, but it made a difference to me in how I handled it. And I give God the glory for that. I thank Him for being there to let me see and help in the pursuit of excellence for somebody who is worth it. The other thing that I want to share is I talked a little bit earlier in one of the other segments, I think part 6, of the fact that there were numerical arrangements with the number 2 in my life. And my granddaughter, whose name we didn't know because it hadn't been announced yet, her name is Celine. And Celine was born on February the 16th of 2022. And I was mentioning the fact that she had a due date of 2/24/2022, and that was 7 2s. And the Lord showed me this, and I'm going, I don't know what the significance of it is because it's for her, it's her life, whatever. But by the same token, it's also a part of where the Lord has finally brought me after 50 years, 7 2s. And I explained this all, in the previous part 6, where I was dealing with numbers. But after that, the Lord began to show me, and He said, "Oh no, Mike, I've been dealing with this all of your life." He said, "I want you to take a look at the places that you've lived out during the course of your life." And I said, "Well, okay, let me look at this." The first place that I lived was 522 Alamy Avenue. Lord said, "Mike, that's 5 2s. 5 2s. I went like, you gotta be kidding me. Never, I didn't notice this or whatever. I'm being challenged, so I said, well, what's the next one? The next one is 626 Sanger Street. He said, well, Mike, that's 7 2s. 3 with the 6, 3 with the other 6, and 1 is a 2. And I went like, wow, that's pretty amazing. He said, try the next one. And I said, well, the next one was I left my house there and I went in the Navy. And he said, Mike, where did you live in the Navy? And I said, well, I lived at Fort Meade at the National Security set of barracks. And he goes, barracks number, and I went, barracks number 2. What floor? 2nd floor. What section of the 2nd floor? Section 2. What cubicle? Cubicle number 2. What bunk? Bunk number 2. 5 2s. So the bunk that I woke up in when I had taken the drug overdose and the sun hit and warmed me in the afternoon and I was able to recover from that drug overdose was the end of 5 2s. It was the bunk with the 5th 2. I never had thought of this before. I didn't think of it when I lived there, but there it is. Now beyond that, I lived at a place in Philadelphia called Fox Hill Road. That ended with a 2. Sewell was the second house in a new development, number 2. Then I moved to 22 Wentwood Court. And if you look at all of these 6 places in a row, they're all 2s. Well, the next place that we moved into, and have been in since 1994, is number 1 Kings Grant. But number 1 Kings Grant was a grant from the king. Not the British king, but the King of Kings. I looked for this house long and hard in order to find the right house for my wife. So this house was not for me. It was a home for her. And I finally found a home here and moved to put money down on the house. And that particular day, the house that we called to put our money on was sold on that very day out from underneath of us. That house burned down. And the next house that I found was a block away, and it was number 1 Essex Court, and that's where we live. So it's not a 2. Something else happened here because it was a king's grant in order to help me move here. However, all the other 2s throughout the course of my life that make up the course of my life, I forgot to even mention the fact that one of these places, numerically, when I was in the Navy, or just out of the Navy, I lived at another place for 2 years. It was bungalow number 2. So that literally would have been the 7th property that I lived at that is numbered 2s in some way. None of that was premeditated or ever planned in any of the times that transpired here. The next thing that I wanted to mention, or just bring to everyone's attention, is that Celine, when she was born on 2/16/2022, and that I thought that it was going to be 2/24/2022. That's what we kind of expected. But due to circumstances surrounding any birth, anything can happen. Who knows? Other elections were taken, and she wound up being born on 2/16/2022. Again, 7 2s. And I say that because as the Lord was showing me here through the pattern of 2s, when I lived at 626 Sanger Street, and he says, saying that's 7 2s, I'm seeing that he used a 6 for that. And down here, slightly later, when Celine was born on the 16th, I realized that was 3 2s that make that up, to bring it to 7 2s. Now, there's not many ways to arrange this date for her birth, that work to generate 7 2s. The 16th was another way to do that, and that's what happened. And I had mentioned before, I have to wait to find out what it is the Lord's going to do, because I don't even know what this means for this child. All I can tell you is that she was born Celine. She has beautiful black hair. She's a beautiful little baby girl, and she's a real blessing already, and a real fulfillment of God's generosity to my life. So I assume that some of the elements regarding numerics have not quite come to an end, because God has a certain progression of things that he's doing here. I don't know how much more or what other things he's going to reveal, but it's interesting to note that these addresses took my life to live them there at these addresses to be able to say this. Okay? There are 7 addresses, 7 2s that reoccur in this pattern. And the last one here is King's Grant, which in a way is a fulfillment of what happened in my life when God gave me my life back. When I had the drug overdose, he gave me my life back. And, sometimes people are living on borrowed time. Well, if I'm living on borrowed time, I owe him an awful lot. There's a big reason why I have a lot of love for Jesus, because he's been with me closer than a brother for a long time now. And he's been faithful in the things that he's done for me, how he's paid attention to things, and how he's ministered himself into my life in ways that are just amazingly involved and very intricate. Well, I was thinking about starting up another story from my book that has 2 poems in it. And because of it's going to have a couple readings in it, and also it's a story of three essential parts. I'm going to wait and hold that for part number 9, which is going to be coming up with an amazing story of the Twin Towers of Faith that occurred in my year 2001. So while we have the story of the Twin Towers in the United States up in New York City in 2001, there is another story here of faith about pillars of faith within our community, people that are out there, people that are, I would say, better than me because of the way they are patient and the way that they are kind in ways that I am not. I am not a kind person in the way that they are. They deal with kindness in a way that's correct. Whereas with me, you get what you get. You know, Jesus didn't get a bargain with me, but I love him for his faithfulness towards me. So if you have a thought in the back of your mind that, gee, Mike, I'm just not worth it like that, it's just not worth it. If anybody isn't worth it to be me, and I'm telling you that honestly, you know, I've been called a lot of names in my life, and most of the time I let them go because obviously somebody's upset at me because of what I'm doing or what I'm saying. And I've just learned how to live with it, but not in a way necessarily that's very kind. There are a lot of times I really wanted the Lord to intervene in the life of people and hurt them. Take them down, put them out of action, take them home to be with you. Or better yet, take them home and put them anywhere you want, but get them out of my life. And, that's not the kindest way of dealing with people. So I'm trying to do a better job of it. I'm not going to do that with you, of course. But God bless you. And may God fill your life with every blessing that you can imagine or even can't. Because he can do things beyond our sense and understanding of reality if we just yield to him and let him. So many blessings to you. I'll see you in part 9 coming up.